So the first piece, Rich, or the first part of the flywheel is that big days are a big deal. So talk to me a little bit about what qualifies as a big day.
So your church has 3 or 4 days every year where two things happen. One, your people are more likely to invite their friends, and their friends are more likely to attend. That's just true. This is one of those things that like you can, in fact, for years, I resisted this. I was like, no, every Sunday is a perfect Sunday to invite people to our church. But you know what? Actually, there are a few Sundays a year where your people are more likely to do this. And one of the things that we come back to time and again in the church growth flywheel is that really the difference between fast growing churches or just growing churches and churches that aren't growing is growing churches have figured out how to drive invitability. That is really the key. At the end of the day, your church will grow when your people tell their friends about it. And so big days are a big deal because your people are more likely to tell their friends about what's going on in the church. And so some of these are obvious. The Christmas and Easter, you typically see those. Again, we could get into the nuance of all this, but those are two big days. Really, to me, the interesting ones are the 3rd and 4th. And so that could be, in some churches, it's Mother's Day. I know for years at Liquid, Mother's Day wasn't one of them, partly because one of our slogans we used to say all the time is, we ain't your mama's church. And so mom doesn't come to your church on Mother's Day when you say we ain't your mama's church. But a lot of churches do see Mother's Day. Another one that's kind of funny is the time change Sunday in the fall, particularly people get an extra hour sleep. In fact, actually this past year when we went through that time change, I had a church that I've been doing some coaching with. They texted me and they were like, man, it was our biggest non-holiday day ever. And they had done some stuff that we had talked about in the big days or big deal. They kind of built around that day. And we were, lamenting a little bit because it's a little bit humbling that you're telling me, okay, so if people just get an extra hour of sleep, they'll come. But we talk in the book about a bunch of things you should do around those big days to kind of make them two things, make them more invitable, and then ensure that your people are fully aware that they should be inviting their friends. It's kind of both sides of those equations.
Yeah. So one of the things that we experienced at the church that I served at, or one of the churches that I served at, was September, or whenever school season starts, seemed to be everybody was coming back from vacation, right? And so everybody's kind of resetting their year and get back into their rhythm, and church is one of those things. And the other one that we found specifically at the church that I served at in the United States was Super Bowl Sunday, because
Absolutely.
You were no longer doing playoff games that could interfere with service times, because Super Bowl Sunday's later in the day, right? So everybody's used to like having to work around playoff times, and then they don't have to on Super Bowl Sunday. So that was always a big day and a big deal.
That's a great one. Super Bowl Sunday is an interesting one, and there's a real growing, and people have been leveraging Super Bowl Sunday for a long time, but the Football Sunday guys have been doing a good job around actually taking this idea of like, let's actually leverage that. Because what you're seeing, and this is what I encourage in the book, is just let the data drive what the 3 or 4 Sundays are a year. Look back over however long you've got, 5 years, 10 years data, figure out what do we have historically. And there is usually the 3rd or 4th is usually a surprise like that. And there's usually somewhere in there one that you're like, oh, why is it that the 3rd week in January is always our biggest, is always our 3rd biggest day of the year? And then you dig back in and figure out, well, it's because our senior pastor always takes the first 2 weeks of the year off, and then he always starts a new series on that. And that seems to be combining with the new year, new you thing. And so, there is. And then, so the question becomes, okay, we know that those seem to be big days. So then what are we doing to kind of build a strategy around that?